Was that trip the one for your wedding?
No, wedding was later in Key West, and Bruce came down. He was a groomsman. Eddie Guerrero was a groomsman. There you have a picture of it. The Undertaker, my friend John Busing, who was my college roommate. Of course, Ron Simmons, my best man. And, of course, Brother Love there. And, of course, Viva La Raza, Eddie Guerrero was in there. Vince sent us one thing because I was wrestling Taker and Eddie coming up. He said, don't let the pictures get out. I said, of course, Vince had just had surgery, so Vince didn't make it. He let me know the day, the day before that whatever it was, he couldn't make it. And he goes, just don't let pictures get out. That morning, the next morning at 6 a.m., they're on, or whatever it was, when Fox and Friends kicked on, there was a picture of the wedding with Undertaker and Eddie Guerrero. And Bruce and I are sitting there. So we had Texas-themed poker night, and we're sitting there, and Bruce and I are singing country songs. And at one point, we're singing, bring me two bring me tequilas, and singing all these country songs. The waiter thinks we're singing drink orders, so they're bringing us whatever we're singing, and so they're just bringing us stuff and just sticking it all around. It was quite the night. You had my wife's her all of her Wall Street friends, then you had all of my wrestler friends, and it was, my guys were pros. So my guys actually handled it probably a little better than some of them.
We saw a picture there of you and Ron Simmons, and I think everyone listening to this knows what high regard you hold Ron in. Of course, you guys had an incredible run as the APA, but one of the fun things we got to see were all of these barroom brawls. And Bruce has told us how sometimes he'd have to be there and maybe make nice with everybody and negotiate a check afterwards for the damage that was done. Can you tell us about any of those stories?
Bruce was there for every bit of it. So Bruce helped me tremendously with JBL. But he was the APA guy. Bruce was incredibly talented. I mean, as you know, Bruce was Vince's right-hand guy. Bruce just ran things well. So I've been around Vince when I would in New York. I'd fly with Vince a lot of times, just him and Kevin, and then to the show, and then fly back with the whole. They have the plane full on the way back. So I got to hear, a lot of the talk, about what they had. And Bruce was always the fix-it guy. Bruce was always, something's wrong with our medical department. Have Bruce do it. What does he know about a medical department? Except for the fact that Bruce is a very smart guy and he can fix things. Bruce can fix anything. So Bruce would go with us on these shoots with me and Ron when we go to a bar. And these were legitimate bars. A lot of it was a friendly tap. But we also went to a lot of regular bars. And we just said, hey, we'll pay what we fix, what we break. Well, these guys have no idea what we're going to do. And so Bruce afterwards a lot of times had to go by and give a little payola to these guys. We were in one bar one night, and we had gimmicked a wall, and me and Bull Buchanan are going to go through this wall at the end. And as I go to run us through, you have one take to do all this stuff because you get busted open. You can't stop and do it again. Everything breaks. So you can't stop and edit this stuff. You can edit maybe post-fact, but you can't stop the action. So you get turned around, get hit over the head with a bunch of stuff that's, back in the day, we didn't gimmick a lot of stuff. We just got hit with it. It was a different era. We didn't know how to do all this stuff back then. It was the first time people had done this. You had the Tupelo bar brawl, years before, but they didn't know how to do it either. We were doing the same thing. And we're going through this wall, and Bull Buchanan looks at me and goes, John, that's the wrong wall. And I said, oh, shit, I'm sorry, Bull. We go crash. We don't know if we're going to hit Kevlar. We don't know where we're going to hit rebar. We don't know what we're going to hit. We go through this wall and land in a bathroom on the other side, both of us on both sides of the toilet. So Bruce had to go to the guy and say, man, I'm sorry about your bathroom. We'll pay for that too. And Bruce was, Bruce is the ultimate glad-hander. Bruce could go to these guys and talk to them, make them feel good, pay them a ton of money, and walk out, and nobody has an issue with it.
And Lord bless him for that. I do want to ask you, we've got a live studio audience here with us at adfreeshows.com. And Lucas Kinzer wants to know, which phase of your career did you enjoy more, John, the APA days or the JBL days?
The APA days, because I had Ron Simmons with me. No doubt about it. I loved Ron, and I still love Ron. I was with him this past weekend, and I had so much fun. I sat with him for hours. We had fun. We rode the airport together like we always do, and I love Ron Simmons. And if I had been an APA member my entire career, I'd be fine with that. I love the JBL run, and I really always wanted to have that singles run. I always thought I could do it. I'd done it everywhere I'd been except for WWE. And one of the reasons was because I got into this wonderful tag team with Ron. But when Ron retired, because he was a little bit older than me and he had a ton of injuries, just like I retired almost the same age, just, a few years later that Ron retired at. I got this chance to run as JBL, and it was absolutely wonderful. I got the opportunity to work with Eddie Guerrero, with Shawn Michaels, with Booker T, Undertaker. I mean, so many great workers. But if I had just been APA with Ron, I'd have been fine with that.
Hey, we got a great question here from Michael Stutler from adfreeshows.com. He's live with us, and he says, good morning. How often do you get to hang out with Ron Simmons? I can see the two of you hanging out, eating steak, and watching football. How often do you get to hang out with Ron?
You know, one of the reasons that I started doing stuff, you know, and people, you know, wonder what I'm doing was, you know, I got bored, and I wanted to do things with Ron. And when I was with WWE for so many years, you know, I was the guy that Vince would call and come do things and need me. When Vince was no longer there, they didn't really, you know, they have their own guys, and I completely understand that. I've got no issue. They have been, Hunter and Nick and Bruce have been wonderful to me. The whole company has been wonderful to me, but I miss being around Ron. And so literally I told them, I said, I want to go do stuff. And they said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to autograph sessions with Ron Simmons. So literally I'll take bookings now. And the only question I have is Ron going to be there? So me and Ron get to hang out, watch college football together, especially during college football season, sit there and laugh and BS all day. It's, you know, just like it's, you know, never change. I got a text thread like most people do with Gerald Briscoe and Ron Simmons. We text almost every day, you know, back and forth, and have a lot of fun talking football and you name it.
So, hey, listen, we heard you were sort of ribbing, if you will, Mr. Briscoe, along with, we saw Bruce doing that, and he was really just digging it in and helping Eric Bischoff dig the own grave. Coach Rosie is with us here live, and he says, what's the best rib ever performed on Bruce? So we've heard about Bruce pranking other people, but do you remember anyone ever getting Bruce?
No, I don't. You know, Bruce loves ribbing people, and there weren't that many people that ribbed him. And it wasn't because they didn't like to rib him. It was almost the Owen Hart effect. You know, no one ribbed Owen, and it wasn't because they didn't want to rib Owen. They just loved Owen. It's crazy to say. I mean, certain guys would rib and get ribbed back. Kurt Hennig was one of those guys. Davey Boy is one of those guys. You know, that would. The only person that ribbed Davey Boy was Owen. But, you know, a lot of guys that were ribbers like this that were really well liked were not really ribbed back. And it wasn't because they were scared of being ribbed. Now, we were a Fuji. Fuji was a different guy. I was scared to death of Fuji. I was scared to death of Fuji. But Kurt and Owen and Bruce, they loved to rib people. It was just fun. It was just funny stuff, you know, because Bruce didn't do mean ribs. Bruce does funny ribs, and he loved to rib people, but it was the same. Now, Gerald Briscoe and I ribbed each other a million freaking times over the years, but Bruce was one of those guys that, you know, you say, I don't rib, I don't like to be ribbed. He ribbed everybody, but people loved him just like they did Owen, so not many people ribbed him back.
Listen, I know that we've got to ask about the Mr. Fuji rib, but before we do, we just got a live update from Michael Stutler, who's with us here live from adfreeshows.com. And he says, FYI, Conrad, I used Game Time to get Vikings Jag tickets this weekend. We had great lower bowl seats celebrating my son's and my birthdays this month. How about that? A real live testimonial. Use Game Time. You'll be glad you did. I want to ask you about Mr. Fuji, though, because.
Hey, by the way, tell Michael if he wants to go to a Cowboys game, he probably could play.
I know you're a Texan. What do you make of that? I mean, now we're complaining saying the stadium needs curtains. What's going on?
Oh my God. Jerry Jones has been a disaster, absolute disaster. You know, Jerry Jones outside of the lines has been a great owner. He built a stadium that had a huge cost overruns. He's done a wonderful job, but that stadium is one of a kind. By the way, his suite runs from goal line to goal line. We saw when we were there, so he can walk with the ball. And he's done everything he can with sponsorships. He's changed the NFL. He just is terrible inside the lines. I mean, we haven't been to the Super Bowl since '96. And every year people say, oh, we're going to Super Bowl. No, we're not. We're lucky to go to the playoffs. Dak is 2-5 in the playoffs, and you give him $250 million. I mean, it's just Dallas is an absolute – they got to start over from scratch. When you can't stop the run, you can't do anything on a football team. You can do something. If you can't stop the pass, you can figure out ways to mitigate that. But if you can't stop them running up the middle, you're screwed, and we can't stop the run. Now Micah Parsons is out there blaming McCarthy. I mean, it's an absolute dysfunctional disaster.